Alright, let's call this meeting of the Madison Select Board to order on Monday, June 26, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Turn over to the town manager for election of the chairperson.
All right, as this is the first meeting after the town meeting, I'll take nominations for chair of the select board for this year.
I would like to nominate Al Penzano.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Seeing none, I'll see a vote in favor. All right, Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
I'll pass it back over to you.
We would now like to elect a vice chair. Looking for nominations.
I would like to nominate Sally Dwyer.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to nominate Sally Dwyer. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, let the record show all selectmen are present. Letter D, consent agenda, warrant number 36, 5/22/23, number 37, 5/22/23, payroll register number 20, 5/25/23, number 21, 6/1/23, number 22, 6/8/23, and number 23, 6/15/23. Looking for a motion to accept both.
So moved as read.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the AP warrant and the payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor?
I abstained because I wasn't there.
We have 4 in favor and 1 abstention. All right, we have on the consent agenda, we have an off-premise liquor license for Jeff's Catering.
So Jeff's Catering is going to do an event at the Fairy Tale Gardens wedding venue on East Madison Road on July 22nd. Jeff's is located in Brewer and just needs an off-site premise or off-premises catering and liquor license. He's filed it with the state and needs your approval.
I need a motion to approve the liquor license.
Off-premise, yeah.
Yep.
Off-premise liquor license.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve an off-premise liquor license for Jeff Catering for the specific date, correct?
Yes, just for that one day.
July 22nd, 2023.
Yep.
Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, we're also looking for...
All of these look a little different, so.
We're looking for a motion to accept a liquor license, or to approve a liquor license for Somerset Abbey.
Somerset Abbey's is a renewal of their annual liquor license, and there's 2 places to sign on this one because not only are they renewing their license, they're renewing their outside the building premises to allow them to sell beverages in their tent.
I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor license for Somerset Abbey. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the liquor license for Somerset Abbey. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And our last one,
So
the
this one
liquor
has a
license for
signature on
Sandy
this page
Beach
and
Campground.
because of the tent, the signature on that page. This is the first annual liquor license for Sandy Beach Campground to allow them to sell beverages in their clubhouse.
I need a motion to accept the license for Sandy River Campground. Sandy Beach.
Sandy
Campground.
Beach, yeah.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the liquor license for Sandy Beach Campground. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Letter E, acceptance of meeting minutes from June 19th, 2023, and the annual town meeting minutes from June 12th, 2023.
It'd be best to have a separate motion.
Okay, all right, so let's do June 19th first.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes for the June 19th meeting.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from June 19th, 2023. Any questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor. So we have, it should be 4 and 1 abstention, correct?
I was there for that meeting.
That meeting was an executive session,
Okay,
that
yep,
all five of
yep.
you were there.
Sorry, Jeff.
I was paying attention.
Sorry, Jeff. Can't wait to include you in everything. Okay, so let's have the meeting minutes for the annual town meeting from June 12th, 2023.
I need one.
Motion to accept the town meeting minutes from June 12th, 2023.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from the annual town meeting on June 12th, 2023. Any questions? Seeing none, all those eligible may vote. We have a 3-0 and 2 abstentions.
Oh, don't drop your pen, Mr. Moody.
Oh, good.
There's plenty more signatures coming.
I know.
So that's the.
I'm only up to 150.
Yeah, that's the annual town meeting.
All right.
Ms. Dwyer, you gotta make sure you keep track of all this stuff on the plans on your desk.
All right, so old business,
I'm listening.
selectmen's concerns from the immediately preceding meeting. So we would be talking about the June 19th, which we can't talk about, so there's no reason to even do that, correct?
That's fine.
Okay, all right, items of communication, Mr. Town Manager.
All right. So as you may have noticed on the walk in here, we are experiencing significant water problems in this building. Most of it started on election day, no fault of people voting, but a few years ago we developed some sewer issues because when the sewer pipe leaves this building, it doesn't go straight to Locust Street, it doesn't go straight to Old Point. It goes out in the parking lot, takes a 90, and goes to Old Point that way. So we roto-rooted it out about 3 years ago, that solved the problem, but something is amiss underground. And so our sewer is backing up. And in addition to that, we may have a combination of some roof leaks and sewer backups that really have impacted Channel 11, which is over on that side. That's where most of that odor is coming from. There's carpeting over there that's been soaked. We've tried to clean it, it gets soaked again. So it's to the point where we've opened up an insurance claim on it, and the insurance adjuster was here to meet with Jeff Drew today, and they walked through the building, and Jeff took some suggestions on how to get that carpet clean. But going forward, you're probably going to have the carpet ripped up, the ceiling replaced, and all the lighting in that part of the building is the old fluorescent bulbs. And none of them work now because of the water damage. So as far as Channel 11 goes, the lights are not the huge issue because they didn't use the overhead lights, they used their own lights. But it's the water and the smell and the dampness and all the stuff that's in the air. So it's going to be an issue. And I trust that Jeff is on top of it, getting the repairs coordinated. So we have actually an electrician over there right now taking a look at some of the lighting issues. And so,
Yo,
Mr. Moody, sorry.
are we checking for mold also? Because this just didn't happen the other day.
well, up in the ceiling is going to be, and so we've got a company coming, a Service Pro company that will take care of the rug, but they'll also clean out everything in the ceiling as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're going to do the best that they can, but trying to get Foss Enterprises from Solon to work us into their schedule. They've already been here twice to try to free up the sewer system, and that has not worked. So they've got to run a camera through there, identify whether it's a blockage, whether it's roots, or whether there's just a broken pipe somewhere that's not connected anymore. So that's where they're headed on that.
Is that going to be feasible for us with all those 90s going all the way out there, other than trying to get a straight shot?
Well, that would have to be coordinated with the sanitary district, and we've talked with them. They're anxious to find out where the pipes actually are, because they don't have any record of where the sewer pipes are in this building. So we hope that when we find them, we'll let them know where they are, and then they can come up with a plan to try to maybe reroute them.
Okay.
So, but at the very least, we want to put an outside clean out,
Yeah.
so they'd be able to access it from the outside and clean it out. Okay. Oh, in light of the damage, I've talked to some of the board members at Channel 11, and I have recommended that the town forego taking any rent payments. I know that they paid a rent payment for July that's in the safe right now. We're gonna hold on to that one and not gonna take any more rent payments until we get this issue resolved. They pay about $460 a month to rent that place. Speaking of this building, the Wessarunset Arts Council, they're the ones that provided the murals that are on the end of the building. They would like to see if they could utilize the space in the basement. One of their ideas is to put together free workshops for painting, print screening, photography, and they've asked if the board would consider a memorandum of understanding between the town and Wess Arts. So there's something that's drafted here. I can get it to you, and I would recommend that maybe if you want to consider it, you put it on an upcoming agenda to consider that. One of the things that Jeff Drew has been working on is looking at the security cameras we have at the town office. The ones that we have now focus primarily on the inside, with one camera that faces the front door out toward the parking lot. But Jeff has gotten a quote to add a few more cameras that would face the basketball courts behind the building, and also give access to anybody on the fire department side of the building. So what I would talk to Jeff Drew about is to recommend to see if the board would be willing by consensus to take up to $3,000 from ARPA funds to upgrade those security cameras. And just want to see what the board's thought was on that, if they had any objections to it.
Need a motion?
Well, we actually already have approval from the town meeting for the ARPA funds to be used for that building, and this would fall under that, if there's no objections. Okay. I did some quick calculations tonight about the budget and where we're coming in. Because of certain issues, such as cost of materials, cost of heating, some payroll, where we had to double up on some things. We are probably going to use all but about $20,000 of this current budget this year. Typically, we come in anywhere between 150 and 100 that we don't spend, but we're going to use it right up to the end this year. And I'll be glad to generate a report once we have all that done, so that the board can see where all that went. The good news, though, is our revenues are about $300,000 higher than it was expected. So I'm very, very confident that the money that we took out of undesignated fund balance, we'll be able to replenish that, because we anticipated revenues in the tune of $2 million, and so far, even with a couple days left, our revenues have come in at about $2.3 million. So we're on the good side of the budget there. And as tax collector last week, I sent out about 295 30-day notices for unpaid taxes on 2022 taxes. That's actually a little lower than normal. And so that if those are unpaid in 30 days, then the lien process starts on those properties. And I think...
He's spoken to some of them.
Oh, once I sent out the letter, they all went off. But I did try. That list started at about 380.
Yeah.
And I was able to try to get a hold of everybody I had contact for to try to encourage them to get in and get that paid. The 30-day notice has about an $11 fee to cover the certified mail and the demand fee. But if they get it lien, that's when the more significant fees go on. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for the town manager? Okay, we're going to move on to new business. All right, number one, discuss annual appointments. And you have in your packet the annual appointments. What I would like to do is to take A through H together, and we'll do I, J, and K separately. Any objections to anything? Is there any reason we can't do that? All right, so looking for a motion to approve.
Can I just ask, the code enforcement, we're gonna appoint the code enforcement, but didn't they have a title of facility maintenance too on the warrant for town meeting?
They did, and that's really up to you if you want to add that into the title. It's not required by the state. These are required by the state.
Okay.
these appointments.
Oh,
Because he has to be able to have the authority to enforce our code.
okay.
He doesn't have to have the authority to mop up the
Oh,
water that
awesome.
comes from the sewer.
All right, so looking for a motion to approve appointments A through H, which I'll read them: code enforcement, local plumbing inspector, fire chief, budget advisory committee, planning board, appeals board, ethics committee, and recreation committee. And those are all on your board appointments. All right, any motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve A through H. Do you want me to read them, or is that?
Nope, that's
Second.
all right, we have a motion to approve letters A through H on the agenda.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, that I don't mind reading them in. They're gonna be in the minutes, the
Yeah.
names of the appointees, but just for the viewing audience. So your code enforcement officers, Jeff Drew nominated. And there's two alternates, David Savage and Jay Watt. Jay is the current code officer, and he would serve as an alternate to help. Dave Savage is the only one of those who has an experienced plumbing inspector's license, so that's why we keep him on there. And that's why the plumbing inspector is Jeff Drew with David Savage as the alternate. Fire chief voted in by his members is Don French. So to the planning board, there are quite a few appointments. There are 4 regular members that are being appointed to the planning board, including Robin Turek, Mark Doty, Mary Tomlinson, and Jay Watt. We did check with MMA. Jay Watt can serve both on the planning board and an alternate as code officer. It's more of a conflict if the official code officer is also on the planning board, because that code officer has duties to the planning board. The associate members for the planning board recommended are Don Skillings and Reen McGinley. The budget advisory committee, all of these folks need to be reappointed every year. Richard Bartlett, Randy Bliss, Richard Cormier is new, Patrick Dolman, Jack Ducharme, Peter Elias, Paul Fortin, Christy LeBlanc, Ken Moore, Rob Shibley, Bruce DeBarge, Mary Tomlinson is new, Robin Turek, Kathy Wilson, and Sean Young is new. The appeals board, these 2 appointments make it a full 5-member board again. Cheryl West is reappointed and Sean Young is new. To the ethics board, Kimberly Solberg is an associate member. And to the recreation committee, Chris Beeman is being recommended to replace Chris LeBlanc, who is no longer serving on that committee. So that's what's going in the minutes.
We have a motion? We have a second?
We do.
And any questions on those? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. So with our appointment to the Recreation Committee, I'd like the town manager to call the Recreation Committee together. We're also minus the Recreation Director, so we will get them together, and Kathy has kind of volunteered to go, and I'll go also if you need me, to kind of get that back organized again, to figure out exactly our path, what their thoughts are, and what our thoughts are about recreation.
Okay.
So whatever at their convenience.
All right, I will do that.
Okay. Letter I, section 906, outstanding taxes.
So I need a motion to approve this policy that requires all payments on outstanding property taxes be applied to the oldest unpaid bill. It seems like common sense, but the state requires us to approve this every year.
I make a motion to accept the property tax,
Section 906 is probably the easiest way.
section 906.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve section 906, application of payments to unpaid taxes. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right. Letter J, treasurer disbursement warrant.
I need a motion to approve this policy that allows one selectman can sign off on state fees, typically when they come in and sign off on payroll on Mondays.
So you're gonna make changes in the current select board?
I have, yep, on this one that you're signing, it
Yep.
mentions all the current members, that's my mistake.
Okay.
Kathy already told me.
All right, looking for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion that we approve the treasurer disbursement warrant.
No second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's disbursement warrants for state fees. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And letter K, policy on small amounts owed.
This is a policy that's been in place, has to be approved by the board every year. It allows $2.50 or less of accrued interest to be written off by the tax collector rather than trying to collect it by lien. So the limit has been $2.50 for several years.
I'll make a motion to accept the policy on small amounts owed.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to the policy regarding small amounts of uncollected property tax interest. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
That's page 2 of that, but I don't trust you to pass them both.
Blame it on you.
All right, so we'll move on to number 2, all right? I would like the board to appoint interim town manager Mitchell Berkowitz at this time. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mitchell Berkowitz to the interim town manager.
I'll second.
And I'm gonna reflect in the minutes there that Mitch actually started working for the town by a contract ratified on June 6th.
Okay.
So in the motion, if it's okay, we'll make that appointment effective, retroactive back to June 6th.
Okay, I will make a motion to appoint interim town manager Mitchell Berkowitz, retroactive back to July 6th?
June.
June 6th.
All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint Mitchell Berkowitz as our interim town manager starting on June 6, 2023. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Congratulations, Berkowitz.
Thank you.
You can stand so they can meet you if you want to.
Thank you again.
All right. All right, number 3, discuss tax collector certificate of settlement.
So I've been a tax collector for many years, and as of Saturday, I won't be able to do that anymore. So what happens is I need to settle up with you. And so there are 3 documents here that just need your signatures on the front page. But for the outstanding 2020 taxes, everything has been liened. The only remaining amount not collected for 2020 is $1,715, and that's all attached to 20 Park Street. So assuming that on the sale of 20 Park Street, that will be settled. For the 2021 taxes, the only outstanding amount that hasn't been liened is $250 in personal property taxes. And that's simply two small accounts, and we'll get them. We'll get them. And for the 22 taxes, I just sent out the lien notices, but they haven't gone to lien yet. So the balance on the 22 taxes is $304,184.19, which makes up less than 5% of the overall tax bill. So if you want to approve all 3 of these settlements in one motion, that would be fine. I'll just get your signatures.
Make a motion to accept all 3 settlements.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second to accept the certificate of settlement with the town manager as tax collector. Any questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right. You want to state those 3 years?
They're in the minutes.
They're in the minutes, okay.
Yep.
All right, well, number 4, discuss ratification of the highway union collective bargaining agreement.
So back in probably February, March, we met with the highway union. Mr. Gopian was the select board representative, and he helped us come to an agreement. So this contract goes into effect July 1st and runs through June 30th of 2026. Usually the biggest negotiating item is wage increases. So this contract has a 3% wage increase for this coming year, and then 4%, after that. They wanted to wait until town meeting and all the budgets had been approved before they ratified it. So I'm gonna have you sign 2 copies, one for us and one for the union. And then it'll go to the union rep and he'll get the signatures of the highway representatives, as long as you vote to accept it.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to approve or ratify the contract with the highway division, all right, from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2026.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the highway contract from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2026. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
Just sign, the town sign.
All right, number 5, discuss
I'm the one getting all the steps in, Mr. Rubin.
discuss ratification of the law enforcement contract with the Somerset Sheriff's Office.
So this is the contract between the town and the SO. It includes the figures that were approved at town meeting. It has already been to the county commissioners, and so I just need the board to vote to ratify it, so we can just get one signature on it. That's all we need is Mr. Vincennes.
I'll make a motion that we ratify the sheriff's office agreement contract for July 1st, 2023 to June 30, 2024.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to ratify the Somerset County Sheriff Office Agreement for Law Enforcement Services, Madison Patrol, from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Oh, starting to get backed up here.
That's your convenience.
Yeah. All right, number 6, discuss final draft of tax acquired sale property.
Okay, so in your packets, you should see the updated policy. We brought this to you back in May 22nd in regards to fleshing something out, selling tax acquired property. So after the discussion on the 22nd, the focus was on section 4 on the second page. And so in the highlighted part, it may not have come across as highlighted on yours, but that the language is as such. When the board takes the option to sell the property, they will post a notice of intent to sell the property through sealed bid. The board may choose to place an ad in the local newspaper or select an alternative source of notification such as email posting, website, electronic sign, etc. In addition to public notice, the board may choose to send notice by mail to the abutters of the property, ensuring that they have the opportunity to bid. Everything else in there is pretty straightforward, and I just didn't know if the board was pleased to the point where they could adopt this policy.
I have a question. So, I'm okay with that section, but number 2, it says, allow the prior owner to redeem the property. The board may issue a quitclaim deed to the prior property owner as long as the following criteria is met. A, the owner of record resides at the property. And that is, I have a question about that, because it's like, I get it, and that's usually been the board's wishes, if somebody resides there, to try to sell it back to them. But sometimes the case may be that somebody was maybe ill for a while, and it kind of got put on the back burner, it didn't get noticed. A situation may have happened so that it got by the whole family type of thing. And I just think maybe it's a little strict when you say the owner of record resides at the property. Maybe, I mean, I wouldn't want that to be like if that property went foreclosed on, and just say, because I know it's happened before, it was a camp, okay? And family members go but the parents, elderly parents or whatever, are the ones that pay all the bills. Well, that all got taken, there was an illness, and all of a sudden, that property got foreclosed on, and now the children realize that. but they don't necessarily reside there. I would just, you know, to me, that's the caution, that it's, when it specifically says the owner of record resides at the property, you would automatically give them the option to buy it back before it goes to bid. I don't know how to word it.
I don't either, because this is under the section of options, so these are 4 options that the board has.
Right.
And in past practice, like you said, the norm is that if a family, for whatever reason, falls into foreclosure and one or a family lives there, the town will allow them 30 days to pay all the back taxes, and in some cases, they may require them to pay utilities if they haven't paid their
Right.
utilities. And that way, they'll just quit claim the property back to them if they did do that. 2 cases this year, we both had cases where the owners of record had died. And in both cases, the family members did not do their due diligence to pay the taxes.
Right.
So,
So we're talking, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking more of a camp situation where somebody might have been in charge of it that had let it go.
Because they, you know, illness or whatever got
Right.
away, and nobody
Right.
was aware, other people weren't aware of it within the family, and I'm just thinking that it's, I don't know.
I guess the intent of Article 2 is if someone lives in the property and they're eligible for a homestead, that we didn't put that word homestead in there, but that wouldn't apply to a camp. So that was the intent of number 2. If somebody's actually living there and they want to be able to stay there, and the town should be able to work with them to get those taxes paid and give them 30 days. It's up to you what you want to do, but that was the intent of number 2. And again, it's your policy, this isn't an ordinance. So if you accept this policy, you can always amend it in the future. If you don't accept this policy, you don't have a policy. So, and it was kind of the intention of the board to create a policy. I know a guy that was just appointed interim town manager that's really good at policies.
Can we see if we can ask him to, well, not see if we can we ask him if he can maybe put something in pertaining to just a camp type situation? A second home situation.
I mean, I just think it's kind of too bad to put it out to bid if the family members, so.
We can certainly work on that.
All right.
All right. So we'll update that for the next meeting.
All right, number 7, discuss sale of tax acquired property at 20 Park Street.
So in your packets, you should have a list of all the items owed on 20 Park Street, including taxes, past utilities, cleanup, legal fees, demolition, waste management fees. Bring a total to $27,266 that the town has tied up in that property, but the property is in the best shape it's ever been in, because all of the debris and all of the house and everything is gone, and the lot is all leveled. So I also put in your packets a draft language to post the sale, if that's what you want to do with the property, is to put it out for sale. I would recommend a minimum bid of $27,500 to cover that. Following the language that was just discussed in the policy, I would recommend that you post this either electronically or pay a few bucks and put it in the newspaper. And I would also send a letter to the abutters so that the abutters are aware that it's being posted for sale. I also put in this draft to have bids back on July 24th in the afternoon, 4 o'clock. That way the board can open and consider the bids at their meeting scheduled for that night.
All right, so gonna need a motion to set the minimum bid for 20 Park Street at $27,500, or whatever the board thinks they wanna put it at.
So moved as read.
Alrighty.
Second.
Alright, we have a motion and a second to set the minimum bid for 20 Park Street at $27,500. And we will receive bids until Monday, July 24th, 2023 at 4 p.m. at the town office. We'll also put this into the newspaper. Okay? Alright, so we have a motion and a second on this. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And we'll deal with it if we don't get 27,500, what we do next. All right, number 8, discuss local access roads for ATVs.
So just a couple notes here. You're probably all aware of this. The trail from the Madison Trestle north has been open since Memorial Day. And Norge Walks Bridge is making good progress. Brian Bronson with the state informed me last week they hope to have that section of the trail open later this summer, July, August. So at the town office, probably 2 or 3 times a week, people come in asking the questions, hey, I live on this side of town, I live on this side of town, how do I get to the trail? Because they don't want to put their stuff on trailers and go to Anson. They want to just leave their driveway with their ATV, get to the trail, and head north-south, either way. So Jeff Ireland is here tonight. He asked to be on the agenda to speak to this. Jeff's the local trail, or involved with the Madison Anson ATV Club. In your packets, Jeff provided some language that the town of Fort Fairfield, which is just up the road from here, it's not Fairfield, Fort Fairfield. Their city council adopted an ordinance back in '22, just about a year ago, in regards to this. And I don't think that Mr. Ireland is referring to this to be adopted as is, but it does include some interesting points that, if the board is willing, I'll let him share with you.
Jeff?
Welcome. Thank you. Jeff Ireland, I'm Madison resident from Mass for the ATV Club. A couple of notes on this. This is the policy that they have adopted excludes the state highways. It's local roads only, town-maintained, town-owned roads. There's another process that will come later, hopefully that will allow ATV traffic on Main Street with a state-approved access route that would allow people to get to amenities. This particular thing that we're discussing tonight is exclusive to residents of the town of Madison, and the intent is to allow them to go directly from their residence to the closest connection to the trail system. There's no provisions in there for you to go get groceries or to, go to your brother's house or anything like that. The intent is straight to. It's pretty clear cut. They have speed limits that they have assigned. That would be obviously consideration of the selectmen. They recommend a speed limit of 15 miles an hour. I don't think that it would back up traffic because, again, this is all town-owned roads, surface streets basically. So if it was highway, you might consider a different speed limit. Recommendations that I would suggest for changes to what is highlighted here. I think it's assumed because the intent is for you to get to the trails, but I think there should be language in there that this ends when the trails close for the season, and begins when the trails open for the season. I think it'd be a strong recommendation to make it part of the provision that operators must have their lights on for visibility. And I think that there should be a time of day consideration in this as well. I don't think there's really any reason, short of flat tires or breakdowns on the trail, I don't think there'd be any reason for anybody to go to 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night on the ATV on the streets to get to the trail system. We have a quiet time ordinance, I guess, in Madison of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I would think that 7 a.m. to sunset would be a pretty reasonable recommendation for a time of day situation. There's also provisions in this, if you haven't seen it, for requirements for factory or equivalent to factory exhaust systems, so no racing exhaust, things of that nature. And there's some boilerplate in that, that's generally the gist of it. And if anybody has any specific questions from me regarding that.
Who enforces the rules?
That would be rules as it relates to on the trails itself, of course, would be game wardens, would be the sheriff's department or state police, primarily sheriff's department, which is our coverage for all traffic rules. The club has the ability to attempt to educate people as to what the rules are, but we're not law enforcement, we don't have the ability to actually enforce the rules legally.
So, you're talking, Jeff, to get to trails, so are you talking about opening up the avenues? I mean, you're talking how,
We're talking about opening up town-maintained roads. Town-maintained is dangerous, we'll say non-state highway routes. So Old Point Avenue is Route 201A, so that would be excluded. There's a existing law, state law in the books that is referred to as the 1,500-foot provision or the 500-yard provision, which would allow most of the residents to be able to go down Old Point Avenue. If you lived on Old Point Avenue, you'd be able to travel Old Point Avenue for less than 1,500 feet for the purposes of getting to the town street, which would then get you to the trail. There's all kinds of different scenarios as far as, you know, different locations in town. This would probably cover population-wise, this would probably cover 90% of the population of Madison, ability to get to the town. There's going to be areas on 148 where they're going to be beyond the 1,500-foot mark. Obviously Route 201, things like that, and I don't know how we address that on a case-by-case basis.
Jeff, can I just interrupt you? Megan, do you need any help? Looks like she has, maybe Donnie, I don't have my plan on
She's
me.
right, she's right.
She's all right?
Yeah.
You know what it is?
Yeah, she's right. This happens more than we'd like it to.
You gonna try to set her down?
I'm gonna bring over the bench over there. Sorry, guys.
That's okay, just take your time and let us know if you need help.
You don't need medical help at all? You need medical help at all?
No.
Okay. Let us know if you do, we can get some,
And if she needs water, there's bottled water in the back there, somebody.
hopefully that will help.
Sorry, Jeff.
any questions for Jeff? Sean, Christine?
Access wise, Jeff, where's the access? Is it on Pine Street? And on the north end of town, where's the access?
So the only access to the rail bed is currently is Main Street. I would imagine that Kennebec Street would likely become some sort of an access point. I'm not sure exactly how ownership falls as far as the town owns a piece of property in there, the church owns some property down there, Eagle Creek owns some property in there. So I'm not sure exactly I'm not sure if we can get from town-owned Kennebec Street to the rail bed. I'm not sure exactly where the crossing is there.
Right on Kennebec Street.
On the town-maintained portion of Kennebec Street.
I don't think the town plows down there.
The town maintains to the tracks.
Okay.
And so once you get within the right-of-way of the tracks, you're in the right-of-way of the state's ownership of the track. And there's two sets of tracks down on Kennebec Street. One used to tail off to go to the mill. And so the state owns all of that, the land in between, the land on the outside of all those tracks.
Sorry.
So, Jeff, so are the laws followed for access for the roads, the streets here in Madison, are the same laws followed as they would be if they were on a state, road? Is that like the age and all that kind of stuff, does that all play into effect?
So, yes, so one of the provisions of the Fort Fairfield arrangement is that all of the state laws are followed as they're written for ATVs. So traveling with traffic, not against traffic, same direction. There's provisions in here that you travel to the extreme right-hand section of the traveled way, but also provisions in there to not use the soft shoulders. So an example of that might be, let's say Purple Avenue, where there are graded shoulders. They want to go on the pavement, not on the shoulders, because you don't want to scour up the ditches and the shoulders. There are age provisions in the state laws as well. There's some, if you ask different people, you get different answers on exactly how they handle the 10 to 16 age group. Basically, you have to be 16 years of age to operate an ATV in the state of Maine unless you've completed the safety course. There's different language that can be interpreted differently as far as crossing the roads, and that same ambiguity comes into play as it relates to traveling roads. Under no condition can anybody under 16 travel without a guardian or parent or responsible person. I'm not sure if that's where you were going with that question.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And so if I could follow up on that, I'm not a recreational person. It's obvious, but so how does the club recommend the young, so when it's a company, the young person can be on their own ATV as long as they're with another person that's driving?
That's correct.
So if somebody wants to get from Garfield Street down to the railroad crossing, the young person is allowed to go with them and then down Main Street, if Main Street were open by the state?
I was hoping that, that Brian Bronson would be here for clarification on that. I don't have a definitive answer on that, like I said, there's some ambiguity in that. There's certainly the ability for you in your provisions, creating a town ordinance, that you could say 16 and older, or licensed drivers, or I mean, there's little catches and little nuances all through that as far as creating problems, I suppose, as well. Solving problems and creating problems. The language in the Fort Fairfield example is that you follow the rules as the state has laid them out as far as traffic laws and as far as age.
And Jeff, do you envision Main Street being an access point?
As a club, our long-term goal is to get Main Street as an access route. Again, the differentiation between an access route and residents being able to use the roads is people will be traveling through the area coming from different places that will maybe jump on the rail bed in Oakland or Fairfield, and we would like them to be able to get off onto Main Street to travel, to get fuel, to use the restaurants, to use the hardware stores, but not necessarily, and those would have to be marked by state laws, those would have to be marked as approved access routes with signage. The ordinance would allow residents to leave that access route to get on the surface streets to go home, or to leave their home to get to the access route.
So if I was from out of town, and I got on Main Street, and decided I wanted to ride up Weston Avenue,
You'd
I
be
would be
in,
in violation.
you'd be in violation, yes, sir. I mean, the approach to enforcement on that, I would guess would be if there's reports of nuisances. If somebody drives by my house 12 times in an hour, they're probably not going back and forth from their house to the trail. But if somebody is, I don't know exactly. I mean, I think the way that would be enforced would be if there are problems reported and concerns expressed at that point.
So where are they gonna get onto the trail without crossing state roads?
You can cross the state roads. You can operate on the state roads for a maximum of 1,500 feet.
Right,
So currently, with a tiny nuance there, currently you can get from, the trail technically is blocked by the state just north of Main Street. Assuming there's landowner permission to cross the private property where the food cart,
Digging Riggins, bro.
Dig and Riggins place, by the letter of the law, they could go from there to the Irving station to get fuel, and there have been people that have been traveling that, because it's less than 1,500 feet. So this does not exclude, this ordinance wouldn't prevent people from crossing or being on Main Street for a certain distance, but it would prevent them from being on. So if you lived on, I'm trying to think of an example, so if you lived out by South Main Street, out by the health center, you would be able to use the shortest route, it'd be most likely less than 1,500 feet from there to the street between the junior high and the park.
Nichols Street.
It is Nickel Street. So you could go from Nickel Street, you could go from there to Nickel Street, down Nickel Street to Jones Street, not to Jones Street, excuse me, to probably Pine Street at that point.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it'd be probably equal distance to either go right to go to the Main Street crossing or go left to the Kennebec Street approach.
Jeff, what is the process for getting state approval for Main Street?
The process for getting state approval is multi-layered. I've done a few of those. So basically what has to happen is the governing agency has to first approve, which would be you. From then, it needs to go to Brian Bronson's office to see if it meets his approval or his department's approval. From there, it goes to Maine Department of Transportation, and their engineering office has to do an engineering assessment, which includes things such as traffic count, accident count, visibility, width of shoulders, posted travel speed limit, just basically an in-depth history, engineering history of the road. And then they approve or deny. The expense for the access roads on state roads is laid in the hands of the club. Basically, the Maine Department of Transportation has to install the appropriate signage, and then they bill the ATV club for that expense. Last one I did, I think, was $145 per sign installed, something like that.
But we're going through an ordinance though, after we approve, it goes to town meeting. If we're going through an ordinance, which is what this Fort Fairfield is.
Right, and Fort Fairfield is a city council, town council. I don't know if they have a town meeting form of government. However, it's other towns in our area, such as Norwalk, before, or even if they went to town meeting, they did a resolution. And their board level resolution was to open all their local roads to ATV traffic. Skowhegan's selectmen have done a resolution to open certain lanes to ATV traffic. So you could go the resolution route, but if you wanted something more teeth in it, then you'd have to prepare something to go to either a special or regular town meeting.
Either way, though, we're gonna have to do a public hearing.
I would certainly recommend you have a
Because
public hearing.
as we know, not everybody is in favor of this, so.
Right.
But I certainly would like to send it to that public hearing and come up with something before that.
Just anecdotally, I spoke with the town manager of Fort Fairfield late last week and to get his opinion of how things have been going for the last year, and he very clearly and blatantly stated that he has absolutely no use for ATVs himself. He's not opposed to them, but he has no interest in riding. I think he said something to the effect of he'd rather have a root canal than go on an ATV ride.
I think our town manager just said that, didn't he?
And he did something not quite so eloquent possibly, but he did say that there have been zero problems, and he encouraged me to reach out to the chief of police as well to get his take on it, which I had not had the time to do before this meeting.
So now this
Seems like there's been no real measurable problems.
Fort Fairfield, it's very rural. This is a little bit more. You know, we got kids outside, I don't know, a lot of traffic through Main Street.
So
We already have a lot of speeders in this area that like to rev it up and give it hell in their pickup trucks, so I can't imagine what we're gonna have with ATVs. I mean, I'm not against it either. I mean, I think it's great, but I don't know. When you say enforced by the sheriff's department, I mean, I'm like, okay, we have 3 of them, so.
That is limited for sure. So just so I'm understanding this, Jeff, because I know we've already had people try to get alternate routes from the Weston Avenue and Madison Avenue side of town to the trestle. And so I know people aren't waiting for us to create an ordinance. They're just gonna find a way to get to the trail. And once the other side is opened up, I'm sure people on the Pine Street side of town are just gonna go down to Kennebec. But do we need to have the state's approval for them to travel the 1,500 feet on Main Street? Or so we don't, the board doesn't have to do anything, and people can get to Main Street, go down 1,500 feet and get on the trestle or the train tracks.
Unless the town creates an ordinance that prohibits that.
Okay.
That's basically just straightforward ATV law.
So if the town wanted to open up Main Street, we'd actually be talking a longer distance of Main Street than, so where does 1,500 feet from the place where the tracks cross Main Street, is that to the light?
I would guess the Light or Irving, somewhere in that area.
Okay. You'd say Irving.
Roughly.
So would a person from the Weston Avenue side of town be able to take their ATV and come down behind Irving on the Court Street between the town office and the post office and get onto the Main Street that way?
Theoretically, I'm not sure how many registered ATVs there are on Weston Avenue and all the sides, but that may put a lot of traffic onto that Clark Street.
So we're just talking ATVs, side-by-side type stuff, and no snowmobiles, correct?
Yes, this is vehicles that are registered as ATVs. So
Okay.
there may be dirt bikes that are registered as ATVs, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, side-by-sides.
So I remember a few years ago, quite a few years ago, we talked about snowmobiles in the same manner, and the board didn't quite go along with that, so. All right, so how are we gonna proceed? Are we interested in coming up with a resolution? We can ask our interim town manager to work on that with our outgoing town manager, Mr. Moody.
First of all, I'd like to see this plan of what roads are gonna be utilized. I'd like to see that broken down to not just opening up the town-wide, every street to ATVs, because I think if you do that, you're gonna have a lot more people here at meetings than you've got right now. But I think there should be something to make it available to them. And the other thing is, you have to remember that if you open up that trail on Main Street up to, let's say, the intersection down here, the only people that are gonna be able to use that are gonna be out-of-towners. And you gotta be careful that they're not going to be floating around, also going to friends' houses. You know, there's all kinds of stuff here, but, you know, if you can fine tune it a little bit more, you know, I think people would be more happy by having it fine tuned a little bit more. As far as, you know, the state's got plenty of laws as far as government, but as far as enforcement goes, you're not gonna have any. It would be a complete nightmare, you're not gonna have any. I mean, the law enforcement that's out there right now are working on priorities, and that is not gonna be on the top of the list. And nobody has the law enforcement in the state right now to have anything extra. So, you know, enforcement is gonna be negative, you're not gonna have any enforcement whatsoever. But then again, I wanna hear from the people what they want.
Right.
But I think it needs to be streamlined up some.
We're also talking going from somebody's house to the trail bed. I mean, if I'm going from my house to Sean's house 25 times, 2 streets down, then that's the nuisance that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that should be, that by somebody should be reported.
How far are you gonna open up 148? Are they gonna come all the way from Shibley's all the way into town?
Well, that's a state
148 is
road.
a state highway.
Oh, okay, Got you there.
Back to that.
all right,
201A, 148, 43, they're all state.
yeah.
So Jeff, I'm just reading this Fort Fairfield document. Does this assume that all local roads in Fort Fairfield are access roads?
Taking it in on the terminology, they're not all access roads. The only access roads in Fort Fairfield, access routes, are state highways that they have, the sections of state highway that they have opened as official access, signed access roads.
Yeah.
They basically, I believe the way this is worded is all town-owned, non-state highway, non-state aid roads in Fort Fairfield
Are
accessible.
allowable.
Yes, allowable.
Okay.
My other question with that, Tim, is newly paved roads. Newly paved roads don't need to be none of that traffic for at least 3 months.
And who
You guys
who
see-
Who are you?
I'm nobody.
No, you're.
But
you're the road
anyways,
commissioner.
that hot top, if it gets hot on a hot day, it doesn't take much. A regular vehicle's different than an ATV. The short turn radius will tear that hot top up. That's another thing we have to think about. We'll be doing a ton of repairs if we can't keep them off newly paved roads.
Alright, so,
So
citizens?
it just seems like it's gonna be, like, to me, it seems like the Weston Avenue end would have a shorter distance to get to the access of it, but if you take, so with that being said, now you've got people from Old Point Avenue end that want access to it, and they should have as much right to access to the trail too, but it seems like their route is gonna be longer to get to the access route.
Not to go to Kennebec Street.
I'm gonna go to Kennebec Street.
They can go to Kennebec Street?
You go down that.
Everybody on this
Get
side of
over
town
it,
can
yeah.
go, just funnel them all to Kennebec Street.
Oh, there's access to it.
That's where you get on the trail there.
That's where you get on the trail.
Okay, and then.
Not till August, probably, I mean, yeah, okay.
Well, when it becomes available.
Right. And I imagine you'll see that side of town pretty active when the Nords Walk Trestle's done and the whole route is open. So, I mean, right now, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. People are gonna go where they wanna go. And if you wanna craft something that's, workable as a resolution or an ordinance, then that's up to you.
Jeff, has the situation that Jim Elias brought up been addressed?
I can answer that. I talked to Brian Bronson the other day. What the state and Jim have dealt with is they're going to extend the trail further away from his property,
Okay.
down over the bank,
Yep.
to reduce the dust and the noise impact.
I know they were thinking either that or coming right up Old Point.
Yeah, they're not gonna use Father All Road, they're gonna go on the other side.
Yeah, because it's just a short stretch, just to
Yeah.
get the dust out of there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So let's work on we looking at a resolution or are we looking at an ordinance? I guess we'd have to, or we determine that later.
I think that the board can be provided with language and then decide which way they wanna go with the language. If you did go with an ordinance, you already have an existing chapter in your code of ordinances that deals with recreational vehicles, chapter 405, so you could simply amend that.
Do we want to put a much effort into ordinances and stuff like that before we hear from the people?
I think we have to have something for the people to look at.
Yeah,
All right,
so language, you could go,
Information,
okay,
And then we'll see what, I mean, we're gonna come back here before we go to the people
yeah,
to look at that, and then we'll schedule a public hearing.
okay.
Yes, Mr. Island?
Mr. Moody made a comment about more access routes versus allowed access. One of the things that I would say for that is if you post like the avenues as access routes rather than local residents access, you're opening that up to, if you post it as a legal access route, you're then opening that up to everybody, not just residents.
Okay,
If you have the ordinance set up so that only the access road is Main Street for people to get to amenities, and then the rest of the town is set up for local access or local use, then that keeps theoretically, it keeps the people that are the through travelers from wandering the side streets.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so we will address this at another time. Any other questions? Jeff, are you okay with moving forward? Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
And I think once we get something designed and crafted, we can talk about it here again, and then we'll eventually bring it to the people and see what they decide.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, number 9, discuss food pantry donation.
So in your packet, I put a little information about the United Way Emergency Food and Shelter Program. We actually received 2 grants from this entity over the last year, and we have used quite a bit of it to help people with rent assistance over the last year, the high cost of rent, people who are impacted that may not qualify for general assistance. We've been able to help them with some rent assistance. When I wrote the grant, I also included a $4,000 segment to go to help the local food pantries. So what I'm bringing to you tonight is a recommendation I'd like to see if the board would be willing to endorse. I talked with the United Way, and we're not allowed to take this money and just write a check to the food pantries. But what we can do with this money is go and purchase items that the food cupboard has a hard time getting or that are increasingly in demand. And I'd like to recommend that we split it up between the People Who Care food cupboard and the junior high food cupboard. Those are the two that serve our area. And with $4,000 to grant, we could do $2,500 and purchase $500 worth of items a month for 5 months. And then with the junior high, we could purchase $500 a month for 3 months of $1,500, if my math is correct. And we could facilitate this through the town, where our general assistance director could actually go and make these purchases and then report back to United Way. So if that sounds feasible, I'd like to see if the board would be willing to approve that so that we could move forward.
We're looking for a motion to approve the $4,000, $2,500 to the People Who Care food cupboard, and $1,500 to the Madison Junior High food cupboard.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second for $4,000 to be broken up between the Madison Junior High food cupboard for $1,500 and the People Who Care food cupboard for $2,500. And any questions? I believe Tim's already talked with Shannon and she's good with that.
Yep, we talked this morning. Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Let's put some more work on Jill.
Well, she's not here, so.
Okay. Number 10, discuss matching grant payments.
Okay, the three that are in your packet were approved for the award back in 2022. Just by way of information, all the awards that are outstanding have to be, the work has to be completed by the end of August. So there's still 3 or 4 different projects that are hanging out there, and I'll let Mitch know the spreadsheet on those. But the ones before you tonight to approve for funding from ARPA funds are $1,880 to Boynton's Landscaping towards the purchase of a new mower, $5,000 to Charlie and Sons toward the construction of a new building, which is underway out at Clouds Corner, and $5,000 to Sack and Brake for the installation of new efficient windows. You can certainly take them one at a time, or you can put them all together in one motion if you like.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the grants for Point Landscaping, Charlie and Sons, and Sackett and Brake. Do I need to put the amounts?
I already got it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to grant payment to Boynton's Landscaping, Charlie and Sons, and Sack and Brake for their matching grant, which was approved earlier this year, or last year, I believe. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Number 11, discuss economic development budget, which is in our packet.
Should be the last page on your packet, and usually the board does this in July, but I wanted to get it to you for a couple of reasons before I left. So this looks the same as it typically does. It's got 2 sections in it. The shaded section is what we consider fixed spending from TIF. These are the amounts that were just approved at town meeting, the town meeting warrant, so they're automatically transferred from TIF to the general fund. The other non-shaded section is the approved areas that we spend this money in. And this year, with Triss's help, we were able to kind of fine-tune it as the funds that come out of the Woodlands TIF, the Woodlands Senior Living Facility, and Backyard Farms. So at the top of the page, you'll see that the Woodlands TIF income goes almost primarily to senior-related projects, which was the design of that TIF. So we have a young intern named Cheyenne that coordinates the Living Well program, which is Madison's age-friendly program, and we pay her some funds out of that. We also fund a small portion of the KV Cap transportation bus out of that. So that's the Woodlands TIF, which is small compared to the revenue from Backyard Farms. That's why Backyard Farms has a significant amount of money dedicated towards economic development, highway projects, and a small amount for fire equipment. So, so the totals, the fixed 120, the variable, if you will, 365, 250 for a total TIF budget of 485, 250. Now, just a couple of comments on this. In the past, we used to include funding for the matching grant program. Last year, we used ARPA funds for that. So it's been a few years since we used TIF funds. I'm not recommending the matching grant program out of TIF funds this year, primarily because the fact of the matter is you need to hire a town manager. So I've put an allocation in there of $23,000 to go towards some of the costs associated with hiring a town manager. So that's my recommendation for these funds.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the economic development budget.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the economic development as read, as presented, I guess. Any questions?
So, so does that mean that we won't have any matching grant funds at all for this coming year?
This means for going forward as of July, that there are no funds allocated for a matching grant program.
Because that's where they all came from, was the TIF.
They usually come from TIF or ARPA.
Mhm.
What we recommend with the ARPA funds is that you go to town meeting and have town meeting designate the funds for ARPA. But at the last town meeting, we designated all the funds. So of that $486,000 we got from ARPA, that's all allocated. And so for TIF, there's really, I mean, there's a couple things you might be able to play around with, but normally we would put as much as $25,000 out there for a matching grant program. That's why instead of that, I put $23,000 towards the town manager search.
I mean, that's something we can talk about for 25,
Certainly.
to look at that maybe. I mean, as we get a town manager, we get somebody in place, that might be their priority. So
Right.
that would be something we can look at for then. And we've just done it, so it isn't like it's been a whole lot
That's
of
true.
time since we've done it.
Yep. You're just finishing up the last round right now, as far as doling out the money.
And if there's anybody that doesn't complete it by August, we'll have a little bit of money there.
You would, yeah.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, select board concerns. Mr. Moody?
None, sir.
Mr. Bean?
None.
Mrs. Estes?
Okay, so I have a question about the recreation committee that we're gonna get together with.
Yep.
At one point, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but there was some kind of communications from Ernie, and they wanted something with the Somerset,
Woods trustees, yeah.
So, should we invite whoever, I mean, I don't know who that person would be or people would be, but should we invite them to that committee meeting too?
I think you should, because I think, are you a member of, yeah, Mary's a member of Somerset Woods trustees, and,
I'm not a member, but Ernie asked me if I would contact you and become involved with the rec committee.
well, there you go. So I think that's somebody that could sit at the table, because, you know, when you have something that's been driven in a certain direction for so many years, and now you have a chance to sit back and relook at it again, maybe this is the time to look at what does recreation mean. And I happen to know a guy that you just appointed as your interim town manager that has a background in parks and recreation. So it might,
Great.
he's got this. So you've got some new members coming on, you've got some, so this, I think you're right, I think this is the time, so if we do reach out to set a meeting, maybe we reach out to the select board members that have expressed interest in being there, to Somerset Woods trustees, to the 5 members of the recreation committee, and then you can kind of say, okay, where do we want to go with this?
I do think that committee has to organize itself though.
Yep.
And choose a chairman and probably a vice chairman and get organized in what their thoughts are, and then bring other people in. I mean, I don't know if the exact first meeting is for everybody, but we certainly can.
Okay.
Because I mean, if we don't have they don't have an organization, it's just gonna be a free-for-all with stuff, so. That answer your question?
Didn't answer that.
Okay.
Any others?
I'll leave them for the next meeting.
Oh, come on, Kathy, this is your only chance.
This is why.
I'm all set.
All right, I have none, any citizens' concerns? Yes.
Regarding the selling tax-acquired property, I'm generally curious, and others have been curious as well, why the wording is that it may be, the notification may be sent to everybody and in the newspaper, or then sometimes it can be just to the abutters. Is there a reason? I've never been here that long, so is there a reason why you choose sometimes to just sell it to the abutters rather than selling it to the highest bidder or whoever is interested?
So there's a couple things that are going on politically at the state level that impacts this. But the policy is intentionally open and vague to give the board options. Because the only authority that they have to sell tax-acquired property is given to them at town meeting. And town meeting is really open, that says they can do it in what they deem to be the best interests of the town. So you have that authority to allow them to sell it. Then this policy gives them a little bit more meat to work their way through. Selling it to the highest bidder is being frowned upon by the state legislation. So the state legislature has actually passed a bill that I think is going through this year that will require, if a town sells a property for more than all the costs associated, they have to offer that extra money back to the person who never paid their taxes. So it's kind of a quirky rule, but the reason they're doing that is because they believe that municipalities can become predatory in this, where they'll grab a piece of property for $20,000 and sell it for $100,000 and put that $80,000 again in their coffers. Now, we have residents that have said, you should do that, but the state is saying no. And in fact, to make it even more difficult, the Minnesota Supreme Court just ruled against a county in Minnesota for doing that. So now you have Supreme Court precedents for overselling. So for example, we don't have to abide by this law because it's not Maine law yet, but $27,500 is the minimum bid.
Right.
If for some reason somebody comes in and bids $40,000 and the selectmen take it, under the new rule, we would have to try to contact all the previous heirs of that person who died to see if they want to come in and get their share of that $12,000, $13,000. So there's really less and less incentive for a town to try to make money on tax acquired.
And you don't run into that with selling it to just the abutters? You don't run into that issue?
In the future cases, you may. So the other reason they kept the language in there about the abutters is, in theory, the abutters probably have the most sincere interest in cleaning up that property. And the one on Park Street, we didn't even give anybody a chance. It was so bad, we cleaned it up, and then we're gonna try to sell it.
I was there, I saw it.
Oh, that's right. It's
My
right in your
kids saw it
backyard.
right in
Okay.
the backyard. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the other thing, we have also done it in an auction format, where we've had 5 or 6 properties. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but we had 5 or 6 properties that were in that category because we did not deal with it for a while. So we dealt with it and we sold it at auction. So that was up for everybody to get. So I mean, it's been done a number of ways.
Yeah.
And it's just whatever the board decides at that time. So I think we'd like to give, in that ordinance, a little bit more of, give the abutters a chance, but also everybody else.
Yep.
I think we need to open it up to everybody, which we will, as long as I'm here.
Cool, thank you.
Any other citizens' concerns? All right, seeing none, looking for more. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:00.